Okay, so today is a very special day for our Rotary Club. Speaking of people who went to Clemson and served in the military, our own Bill has spent, today he was saying 69 years in Rotary. 69 years. He joined Rotary, he was saying right here on this stage, and then he went to Fort Jackson for basic training. So thank you. And thank you for the rest of you guys. I saw Ramona. So next year, 70 years. Don't forget. One more thing. But we're very thrilled. We're very thrilled to have all of you. And today we'll have Beth Patricia will lead us in our invocation and pledge.
Thank you, Jane. Before I lead us in the invocation and pledge, we have a memorial service for one of our members that we've lost since we've last gathered. And I'm going to try to light the candle. And this is a memorial service for James Thomas Jim Williams Sr. And if you've joined this Rotary Club within probably the past 5 or 6 years, you may not have any clue who Jim was. That's unless you are an old-time Greenville person from the Augusta Road area, or unless you went to First Presbyterian Church. Jim has not been active in our club. Even though he was a member, he's not been active for a number of years because of his health. I was fortunate enough to get to know Jim while he was still living off Aberdeen. I walked by his house just about every day and increasingly saw him and Agnes as they were in retirement. But he was active in this club for a long time. And he was, I would characterize as one of the sweetest and most thoughtful people I know. When I think about Jim, he was very quiet. He didn't stand out in a room, but he could be the funniest guy in the room at times and was just a sweet, kind, gentle man. And that's what I will always remember about him. He joined the Rotary Club of Greenville May 1st, 1981. He would have been a member of this club for 40 years if he had lived another month. He moved to North Carolina. His health was failing really badly. He had been in a care facility in North Carolina. And his wife, Agnes, had informed Michelle and a couple of us that she would be leaving at the end of this month to join him, and that he would have to terminate his membership because he would simply not be able to come back to Rotary. But he maintained his membership in the club for all those years. And he died, regrettably, before this club year was over. He died April 6, 2021. Jim was a Paul Harris Fellow. He served as co-chair of the Singing Christmas Tree, which for 35 years was our club's service project. And I worked with Jim some of my first couple years in Rotary on the Singing Christmas Tree. Jim could have been Santa Claus if he had had the white beard and white hair. And he rarely missed a meeting of this Rotary Club. He was extremely active in his church, First Presbyterian Church. And he worked in the office supply business, office supply company. And he also received multiple awards from the American Office Product Dealers Association. He was a very proud veteran of the U.S. Marines, and he would tell you that he was a proud veteran and a proud Marine. In addition to his loving wife, Agnes, he leaves behind 2 children, a son and a daughter, and several grandchildren. So let's keep them in our hearts as they go through this time of grief. And let's take a moment of silence, please, if you will, to recognize Jim's life, his life of service, and what he meant to so many people, not just in this club, but also his church and to Greenville. So a moment of silence for Jim, please. Amen. Thank you very much. So if you'll stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, we will have the invocation. So to our Creator, we are thankful for the food that is before us today and for our many blessings. We are thankful for the privilege of belonging to this organization of Rotary and for the fellowship and support of our friends here today, for the opportunity to share ideas, but mostly for the opportunity to serve. We recognize that most of us have simply more than the necessities of life, and that should encourage us to serve those who do not have those necessities. Help us as we enjoy this support of our family of Rotary, and help us to reach out to those less fortunate within our own community and around the world. And as we enjoy this meal together, both in this room and in our homes or in offices, inspire us to work to rid the world of hunger and to help bring the world clean, drinkable water. Help us stay focused on working together for peace and understanding in the world and for peace and justice here at home. As we go about the rest of this day and the rest of our lives, keep us mindful that we are here to serve others. Amen. And if you'll join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon and welcome. Glad to see everybody's smiling faces today. And welcome to those that are joining us virtually as well. I'd like to recognize our guests and visiting Rotarians. So when I call your name, please stand, remain standing so we can recognize everyone at once. Fabian Garson is a guest of Fatima. Is Fabian here? Stand up. Mega Lal is a guest of Surendra Jain. Kirsten Peterson is a guest of Philip Kilgore. Zach Ayala is a guest of the club. Brett Sullivan is a guest of the club. Laura Tesh is a guest of the club. And Marty Elliott is a guest of the club. I'd like to recognize visiting Rotarians. Ryan Childers from Imperial Valley, California is a guest of Bob Morris. Ann Golden with the Reedy River Club. Frank Cox with the Clemson Sunrise Club. And David Ashley, Charlottesville, Virginia, is a guest of Jimmy Kimball. Let's give everybody a warm welcome. Back to you, President Jones.
Okay, this year we have been working on 3 things in our club. We're doing networking, service, and fun. So we got some great networking opportunities coming up. We do a small group, it's a Zoom meeting called Lunchtime Conversations. And Teresa Miller leads that. If you haven't been able to join us yet, we have had some great conversations about some pretty serious topics about how we deal with people who have differing opinions, how we carry on conversations and listen and not always talk, which you can probably guess is a little bit hard for me. And they've even taught us that sometimes not saying anything is a great thing to do. So I encourage you to join us on that and to really get to know a little bit more about some other Rotarians. Our next meeting will be May the 11th. Lynn D. Eldridge will be our speaker. And Lynn is gonna talk about, she knows how to turn cookie crumbs into opportunities for growth and empowerment. So we hope you'll join us next time with Lynn. And this coming Thursday evening, for anyone who is interested, it's getting kind of close, but it's still not too late to register today. We have an outreach for people of who are not the majority of our club. So we're trying to follow Rotary's effort to have clubs reflect the community. So we're having a diversity event Thursday night. You can still sign up today with Michelle. So just let us know if you have somebody that you would like to bring to that event. Service. Caroline, thank goodness we were, May the 15th, awesome. Were any of you out here when we were out cutting bamboo in the rain last fall? We were supposed to do that this past Saturday, and luckily they canceled it ahead of time. So we appreciate that. So May the 15th, did you? And that was when we were wearing masks. So wet mask, you cannot breathe. So 8 to 12, and it's really fun. We have a great time out there, so we hope you'll join us. And I haven't cleared this with you, but I've always thought if you have children who are capable of doing that kind of thing, it's a great opportunity to bring your children or grandchildren out, because as you all know that when we bring them up, believing in community service is just something that they naturally grow into. So we encourage you to come to that, and thanks for May the 15th. And on May the 6th, we are still doing a teacher appreciation lunch at Alexander, and I thought I saw Lisa here. Lisa Mangione. There she is. So if anybody wants to volunteer to help with the teacher appreciation lunch, see Lisa back there. And then fun. This has been a very challenging year for everybody. In your business, some people with your families who are seeing a lot more of their spouse and family than they ever dreamed of in their entire life. That's kind of challenging for some people. So overall, it's just been a real tough year, and we've missed a lot of getting Rotarians. So since we have the opportunity to be vaccinated, on Thursday evening, May the 27th, we're going to have a party at my house, and you're all invited. So I hope you'll be able to join us. It's going to be an outdoor party. So if we hear what we think we're going to hear today, smaller groups outside is good. If you go inside, we'll ask you to wear a mask. And if it rains, we're all going to be in my garage and other places, but we'll make sure that we have plenty of space. But I really want to do it because I've missed getting to see all of you guys. And so many of you have done so many remarkable things for our club this year. So it'll be really fun. So that's what we got heading up. Oh, and also many of you are very aware for this month was kind of our membership month, and we appreciate many of you bringing members. And a lot of you may have been thinking, well, I meant to bring a member or I meant to call somebody and it just got away from me. Of course, it's never too late. And for the month of May, if you have somebody that you would like to invite to Rotary, you think they're a great Rotarian, but you have a hard time inviting them, then just let Michelle or myself know, and I will be happy to invite them for you. So continue to bring friends and colleagues and people that would make great Rotarians. Thank you very much.
As all of you know, the way things happen in Rotary is someone sees a need, and then they come up with a solution, and that turns into a project. I'm here to talk to you about one of those today, but it's a little bit different. We spend so much of our time working on service to our outside community, and that's the bulk of our mission. We sometimes fail to serve ourselves. We sometimes fail to serve Rotarians, and that's part of the game as well. So realizing that literally thousands of Rotarians across our 2 Rotary zones, I'll explain that in a minute, have lost jobs or have lost income, have lost business due to COVID. Our zone director, Stephanie Urchik, decided to do something about that. And by the way, Rotary zones are the layer of organization above a district. So our zone 33 goes all the way to Pennsylvania, all the Atlantic seaboard states down to South Carolina, and then our sister zone 34 goes from Florida all the way through the islands to South America, more than 20 countries. So we're talking about something on the order of 1,700 Rotary clubs and 67,000 Rotarians that are affected by this project. Now, Rotary Works, the URL's on the screen, and that's just it, rotary.works, no org, no com, etc., rotary.works. This is a project that we call it vocational service. It's by Rotarians, but it's for Rotarians and Rotaractors. And it's for people who have, again, been economically, had economic difficulty due to COVID. So on that site, here are some of the things you or another Rotarian or Rotaractor can do. First, apply for an economic assistance grant. Yes, we're giving out money. We're giving out money, $500 a person who has a reasonable explanation for how they've been impacted by COVID. Now, of course, that's not going to make too many mortgage payments, but it should help somebody make some ends meet. You can if you're in job transition, you can request a career coach at no cost. You can request a Rotarian career coach who's qualified and volunteered. And of course, we have a person that matches those up. You just fill out the coach request on the website. You can find recordings of monthly job transition and vocational service webinars. And those go back to 3 or 4 months ago, and they go forward another 3 or 4 months, so you can register for future webinars. Now, of future webinars, the next one in May, it's the second Wednesday in May, features our own Kathy McAfee. And she'll be speaking about networking ahead for your career, something she's expert at. It'll be a great program. And of course, there's also a curated library, we call it the Resource Center, a curated library of articles and videos and other information with respect to job and career transition. If you just want somebody to do a practice interview with you, we'll line you up with a coach to do that. You find all of that on the site rotary.works. So if any Rotarian that you know, or if you yourself, don't be bashful here. If you've suffered a career transition due to COVID, if you've suffered income loss due to COVID, go to rotary.works, apply for the grant, and check out some of the other resources. And remember, Rotary works. Now I'd like to bring up Rob Rowan to tell us a little bit about the Swamp Rapids Hockey Night.
I bet you all don't know that our Greenville Swamp Rabbits are in second place, and we're going to go to the playoffs if we can just keep on. So I thought, what a great thing we could do is let's have a hockey game that we all go to. So we picked a date, Saturday, May 22nd, and we have $15 tickets, which are nicely discounted. And if we get a lot of us and get our family and our friends, we'll even get some other fun things to do while we're there. So we have to go out there and find some. So how do you do this? Brett's here, Brett Sullivan, and we're going to put a link on our website and send out to all you about how to easily sign up very easily, and we're going to have a great time. So I know that hockey is fast. It's soccer on steroids. You'll have a great time. Bring your kids, bring your family, and then friends. Brian's going to come, right, Ryan? He's going to bring everybody he knows. So let's show up for this and let's give a push, because maybe May 22nd may be a big date. We may be the date we clinch, a home ice advantage or something like that. So let's do it. Go Rabbits.
Hello, Greenville Rotarians. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today to promote Reedy River Rotary Club's only fundraiser, the Reedy River Duck Derby. Thank you, Terry, for that graphic. This coming Saturday, the 17th annual Reedy River Duck Derby will be held virtually, unfortunately, for the second year, but because of the pandemic. So more than ever, we really need all of you to support us by adopting ducks for the race. Every year, our biggest day for adoptions and souvenir sales is the day of the Derby in the park. So being virtual eliminates that boon to our numbers. So since we can't be in Falls Park this year, our members will be performing community service at United Ministries and at Project Host. And the proceeds from the Derby will go to those two organizations this year. So these events can be followed through the day on social media. And at 2:30 on Saturday, we will have a Facebook Live event where Gordon Dill of WSPA TV will call out the winners for us. As usual, we have great prizes. The grand prize is groceries for a year from Publix and a chance to win $1 million. Second prize is $2,500 cash. And third prize is a night stay at the new Grand Bohemian Hotel. And then we have, we have about 40 prizes, so 37 more after that. The biggest benefit, of course, is what we do in our community, excuse me, to address dire needs in our community and in our world. Now, I gave out a card, but I put a Duck Derby card at most places. So if you will pick that up, get out your iPhone, bring up your camera, hover over the QR code on the back, and tap on the link that comes up and adopt your ducks. We would really appreciate your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. I've got 2 quack packs. I've never won anything, but there's always a first time. So Beth Paget back again, promoting our Old Club Conference, which I am responsible for. And because you're so lucky to have me in your club, we are the host club for the Old Club Conference. It is June 25th through 27th at the lovely Hyatt Regency Hotel down the opposite end of Main Street in beautiful, as we call it, beautiful downtown Greenville. It's going to be a great conference. This will be the first time in 2 years that we have been able to bring Rotary clubs from across our district together. I hope to see all of you there for, if not the whole conference, at least part of it. It is a very affordable conference. It is also what we call unbundled. So if you cannot attend the entire conference, there will be possibilities for attending certain events along the way. So please put that on your calendar. Registration is open right now. You've gotten an email yesterday. You will get a couple more. And again, this club is the host club. So I really personally ask that you support us by your attendance at this. The Friday night will be the long-delayed Best Backyard Bash. It will be real this time instead of virtual. It will be at the Hyatt in Studio 220. We will have fun, no speeches. It will be all fun and bluegrass. You know, we haven't had a chance to have fun and fellowship together, so it's going to be an evening devoted to that. The Saturday morning is a compressed general sessions. It starts with the usual, opening ceremonies. And it will be a day that looks at service and how to make ourselves more effective and how to make sure what we're doing is great service. It starts with my friend and former colleague, Deb Richardson-Moore, who is going to be talking about you want to serve. Well, let's make sure we're going to do it right and avoid toxic charity, avoid all the things that harm instead of help. And that's going to be a wonderful kickoff keynote to the conference. The conference ends at lunchtime. The conference part of it ends at lunchtime with my personal friend, Vanessa Urban, who is a former district governor in North Carolina. You will not hear a more inspirational speaker. She's going to talk about be hope, be intentional. Let's be the hope that the world needs, the bridge to hope, what Rotarians can do. And she will inspire you, and she will share stories that will just delight and make you a little sad occasionally at times. In between that, we will showcase some of the best community service projects that clubs are doing. If a certain club that I'm familiar with gets its application in on time, I bet you they can showcase the great work being done at Alexander Elementary School. And there will be other ideas that we can all learn from each other and see the great work being done throughout the western half of South Carolina in our district. And then the first time for a district conference, we are doing what our club does so well, which is dip our toe into the diversity, equity, and inclusion area. We will have a panel discussion on that. It's the theme for this year is Rotary Opens Opportunities. That's the theme for the conference also. And so it's going to be a look at what we as Rotarians, are our doors really open? And it's going to be a great DEI panel. The awards and installation banquet, normally a separate event, will be that evening. That's also important. Jane does not get to turn over the reins of this club to Ramona unless 50% of the people of this club are at the awards and installation banquet, Jane. And so, and also I fear that I'll have to stay district governor. No, that's not thumbs up on that, Frank. We will go ahead and install Frank as district governor. So it's going to be a great evening and it's going to be fun. And there are the clubs, including this one, have done so many great things and you want the recognition for that. The Sunday morning will be our memorial service. 2 years, we've got 2 years of Rotarians that we've lost to recognize. And then we will build the part of the program on Sunday around Alzheimer's, because as Rotarians with CART, Coins for Alzheimer's Research Trust, we are so involved in that. So from beginning, a lot of fun to the end, a lot of fun and some serious content in there. Please, 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 it's going to be very inexpensive. It's going to be affordable. If you're like me, you're tired of seeing the four walls of your own house. This is a tough sell for people who live in Greenville, but you will have the cheapest rates you will find in your lifetime at the Hyatt Regency. So book a room, get out of your house, come join us on Main Street, June 25th through 27th for the All Club Conference. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to Teresa. Okay, well, I'll turn it over to Jane.
Thing from Beth is Ramona is getting the gavel the first meeting in June. And the second is I think I understand that the governor's home club is expected to be the rowdiest, the largest and the rowdiest at the event. So we got a big reputation to live up to. So we hope all of you will join us. It's really going to be a great time. And I was under the impression that this was for people who are the Rotarians that are up here. This is for all Rotarians. And especially if you're kind of new, it gives you an opportunity to meet other Rotarians from other places and to learn a lot more about Rotary and what we do around the world. So speaking of all the great things that Rotary does, as I was saying, this has been kind of a tough year for all of us. And we were not able to have our fundraiser as planned. It's been postponed again for the fourth time, I think, till December, but we will have it. But in the meantime, how do we continue to do all the great things that our club does? And as you heard, we do Alexander Elementary. We've gotten clothes and shoes for the students. We've gotten books for the teachers. We have for the library. We've gotten food for them. We opened a food pantry. We support the teachers through teacher appreciation. We do great things there. You also know we do Law Day, Career Day, mentor veterans, all kinds of great things in our club. And it takes money to be able to do that. So the board and some very innovative people thought, what could we do to help fund all these things? So we came up with our March Magic. And so we had some great Rotarians or March magicians who put up the money and said that we'll put up to $10,000 if the rest of you guys will match it. And guess what? You did it. You did an amazing job. So thank you to our magicians that put up the initial money, and then to all of our leprechauns who continue to support at amazing levels. As you can see, it's quite a lot of people. And we did do a Facebook campaign thanks to Amy, who I'll have to say 2 of my sisters donated to our charity. So I'm very proud of that. So we appreciate the whole effort by so many people. And as you can see that our club through March Magic was able to raise $21,116. I think that's amazing. So I appreciate all of you doing that. And is he here, Fabian? Yes, there he is. If you'll come on up. So Fabian graciously offered for any person who donated to March Magic that you would get to go into this drawing, and you will get a free night here at the wonderful Westin Hotel.
You know, just came back from Germany last night and can tell you, as nice as it is in Germany in springtime, something like this would not have been possible, right? So far behind there, still with opening of restaurants and events and all this. So we are far ahead here, which is really nice to see. And again, hopefully everybody will be back soon. So I have to what do what?
I get mad and you can read it.
Okay.
How about that?
Oh, that's
They can be
bad.
mad at me.
Okay. Thank you.
That one?
That is one.
Okay.
Okay. Well, the name is, it's a little cut off, but if I see this correctly, it's Terry Weaver, right? Terry Weaver won that. How to read. So you call me directly when you're ready to join, and I will make it special. Thank you. Okay.
That's awesome. And if you don't know Terry Weaver, Terry obviously does all this, and he does things for our club, for our district, for the zone. So he is certainly a worthy winner of that. So congratulations, Terry. And so next we'll have the 5-minute spotlight with Joanna.
Hello. Thank you everyone for inviting us here to present to you AHAM, our nonprofit organization. My name is Joanna Ballesteros, and I am the PR chair of AHAM. AHAM stands for Hispanic American Women's Association, and we promote education and we share our culture. But instead of just jumping immediately to introduce you to our mission and the formal presentation, I want to put the spotlight on the real reason of our existence. Okay, I want to introduce you here Richard and Karina, 2 of our almost 150 students that have been granted scholarships through the years. So Richard is now studying at Clemson, And they are two Hispanic students that at the moment that they applied to our scholarships, they were highly committed, they were very good students, and very committed and motivated to continue studying and pursue a career in college. However, their parents and they were struggling financially. And that's when AHAM comes in. We work hard to fundraise and get money to help these kids attain and go to college and be able to pay their studies. So as I've been telling you, we receive every year approximately 28 or 20 up to 80 applications of students like Richard and Karina really wanted to go to college and sometimes having real hard time attending or being able to complete. Sometimes, and I've been part of this process as well, you hear really heartbreaking stories. The motivation is there, the capacity is there, but these are just difficult times, and sometimes they have to postpone their studies and probably never come back to really pursue that dream. So we believe that it's really through education that we can make a big impact in our community, in the lives of these kids, and of course in the life or in the society in itself, in our Hispanic community. So this is just a brief summary of our vision, and we think that through higher education and growth opportunities, the Hispanic youth and women are an active part in the development of their community. And it's our mission to grant college scholarships to students as Richard and Karina from Hispanic origin of the upstate of South Carolina. So we organize activities with the purpose of sharing the Spanish language, preserve our culture and folklore, and promote women's opportunity for growth. There is a major fundraising that occurs in September, which is our Hispanic festival, and I'll make sure that you all get invited to this festival. And our objectives, as I've been saying, is to promote higher education and to promote the development of educational programs through partnerships with different high schools in the community. We've granted so far around $370,000, and we've have a scholarship for around 150 students. Today, we hear a lot about diversity and inclusion. To make this dream real, what a better way to join forces with AHAM in order to make these dreams of going to college for Hispanic kids a reality. So if you believe in our mission and if you would like to collaborate and find out more about AHAM, please do not hesitate to contact us, and we'll be happy to explain you and show you more about our activities. Once again, thank you very much for having us here.
Thank you, Joanna, and thank you for informing us about AHAM. And good luck on your endeavor, and what a great way to encourage and help those who have, like you say, have the potential, but always not the resources. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you all for coming to this wonderful meeting. I can feel the energy changing already in our hybridness. And I want to thank Joanna and the AHAM organization for sharing their spotlight on their organization. They do wonderful work celebrating the Latin culture, and also for creating these amazing educational opportunities for Hispanic youth that changes lives and therefore changes our community. So well done. Our next speaker is Patricia Ravenhorst, who is here to raise our awareness about the urgent needs of domestic violence and sexual violence victims in our state of South Carolina. I first met Patricia actually at an AHAM event when she was recognized as Mujer de Impacto, a woman of impact. And after hearing her story and learning more about her work, I knew then that I wanted her to come to our Rotary Club meeting to share what she knows. So thank you, Patricia, for waiting a whole year to get on our calendar. It is so wonderful to have you here. Patricia is currently the General Counsel at the South Carolina Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. This coalition known as, I'm going to work on this, SCADVASA, easy for you to say, is a statewide coalition of organizations providing intervention services to both the victims and the survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. They offer primary prevention programs as well to our students and to communities across South Carolina. Now, prior to joining this organization, Patricia served as director and attorney of the South Carolina Victim Assistance Network. While she was there, she established that organization's specialized legal and support services to immigrant survivors of crime. Now, Patricia is a natural collaborative leader. In fact, she built South Carolina's statewide Immigrant Victim Coalition. This group brings together professionals across the state to work with immigrant survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, child abuse, human trafficking, all here happening in South Carolina. Patricia received her law degree from Duke University, and as an attorney, she is licensed to practice both at the federal and state courthouses throughout South Carolina. When she's not doing all of that, she actually serves on a couple task forces, including the South Carolina Human Trafficking Task Force and the Upstate Human Trafficking Task Force. Clearly, Patricia is a mujer de impacto, a woman of impact, doing vital work for at-risk individuals and families in our community. Rotarians, guests, please welcome Patricia Ravenhorst.
Thank you, Kathy. It's strange not to see you in person, but and it's really lovely to follow AHAM. They're an incredible group of women doing amazing work, and close to our heart. My daughter, who's from Guatemala, and participates in their Hispanic Heritage Festival every year and gets to showcase her culture, and that just means the world to our family. And so, thank you to AHAM for all that they do. So I think in coming here today on, I just wanted, this is like actually my first event out of my house since March for work. The only other time I leave my home is I spend my Wednesday evenings and one weekend a month with a group of middle school girls who started an all-girls Boy Scouts of America troop. So it seems really appropriate that I'm here with another group who's about fun and service and leadership, as these young women are. But I hope that you guys are maybe listen to me a little more and bring a little less drama into my life. So I just think it's wonderful that my time outside of my family is with people dedicated to leadership, service, and fun. So I appreciate being here today. Of course, the topic that I have to share with you today is a little less fun. And I was thinking a lot about how to bring it home with just the short amount of time that I have. So I do have a PowerPoint presentation, but knowing me, and I'll probably go over, I'm going to read you this. So in preparing for actually today, I actually looked at the newspaper today, and one of the lead stories in the state newspaper this morning begins with the following story about a survivor of domestic violence from right here in the upstate. So this is this morning's paper. The sound of fists hitting flesh echoed in the bedroom. A woman's voice tried to stop the fists. The voice faded. Leah Ross said she remembered thinking, "This is how I'm going to die." Her boyfriend pinned her to the floor, choking her and nearly making her pass out. He poured water into her nose and mouth, and she felt like she was drowning. It was 2010, and the first time he abused her, she said. It wouldn't be the last. Leah survived the ordeal, but spent the next 8 years living through violent jolts from the man she later married. So that was in today's state paper, and a reality for many, many South Carolinians. And so I think, and then the goal in South Carolina is to work forward, to work on change and bring culture change. And so just like all of you, there's a problem that needs a solution. And I am very, very blessed to have spent my years working at the Weich firm for many years, doing this on a pro bono basis, and then having this become my career and working collaboratively with partners across the state to change this reality for those of us here in South Carolina. So SCADVASA, as Kathy already tried to pronounce, is the acronym for my organization. So we are a statewide nonprofit based out of Columbia, and there's one like us in all 50 states around the country. And our job is to be the collective voice to prevent sexual and domestic violence across South Carolina. So we look like a state agency, but we're really a nonprofit organization. And we are very, very blessed. We have a very, very small team. I was talking to Linda. We're a small team doing collaborative system change work on a statewide scale. So it often is a little daunting, but we work to sort of provide that statewide perspective. And so this is sort of our team to give us a sense of perspective. But we are really excited that we are really a membership network. So SCADVASO's role, sort of at its core mission, is to provide member services to the 22 other agencies and nonprofit organizations in South Carolina that are providing direct services on the ground. So as you see here, so we have 13 domestic violence agencies and 15 sexual assault agencies working throughout the state. We also support a wide range of affiliate members, and we work across both the criminal justice system, victim service providers, and other community-based organizations working to end domestic and sexual violence. If you are looking for more information about SCADVASO, or if someone that you know and love is looking for help and you're not quite sure where to go, our website is the centralized hub where you can find domestic and sexual violence agencies that are working directly in your community. So at the bottom of our website is the Get Help button. So when you're not sure where to go, that's a great place to start to find us. What that'll bring you to is an interactive map that we can click on any county. And then once you do that, it brings you to the domestic and sexual violence organizations that serve your local area or the area of your loved one. So in terms of looking, I'm sorry, I can't see this very well, but for those of you who may not know, so of course, the domestic violence agency that serves Greenville County and Anderson, Oconee, and Pickens is Safe Harbor. So all the funding for domestic violence is like split up into these different regions, and there's one agency that provides that. So Safe Harbor is our partner and member organization here in the upstate. But all of our member organizations, so I don't know how well you can read this, is looking at sort of what our member organizations in domestic violence actually were able to accomplish. And these are statistics really from the 2018 to 2019 timeframe. But I'm going to pause on this to talk a little bit about what domestic violence is. So domestic violence, I think we all understand, I think when somebody is physically harming someone that they're in an intimate partner relationship with, we can understand that that is domestic violence, that no one deserves to be hit and physically harmed. But domestic violence is much more complex than that. The crime of domestic violence is something that sort of begins from the beginning of an intimate, may begin from the beginning of an intimate partner relationship, because it's a systematic pattern of abusive behavior designed to exert power and control over the person they're in a relationship with. So the relationship often begins with promises of love, promises of support, promises of something better. That sort of like what ultimately becomes a false promise of safety and love and respect begins to sort of work down in a systemic pattern of emotional, psychological, financial abuse and isolation that brings the person down into a place where they become more and more dependent on that other individual. And then at some point that type of violence may become physical. So domestic violence is a systemic pattern, and it's not about getting mad or anything. It's designed to sort of exert power and control and keep the person in that situation. The scope of this problem in domestic violence is incredible. It's epidemic. So nationally, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men experience physical violence in an intimate partner relationship. In South Carolina, we are one of the worst in the nation. 41% of women and 17% of men in South Carolina have experienced intimate partner violence in their lifetime. That's an incredibly large percentage. And imagine all of the children and families that impacts around. South Carolina, sadly, has consistently ranked in the top 10 around the country in the rate of women murdered by men. And we are consistently usually in the top of that over the years. 2020 was actually the first year in over 20 years where South Carolina just dropped out of the top 10 on the rates of homicide by men against women. So I think we're looking at that. And so the statistics here in 2019, I think what's really interesting here is sort of just the sheer number of people that we helped. One thing to know, if you guys are working with somebody who's experiencing domestic violence and is looking for services and support, a lot of people think that our domestic violence programs are just largely shelter-based programs. Like if I need emergency shelter, I call the domestic violence agencies. Our domestic violence agencies are far more than that. They're doing prevention work, intervention work, community-based services, and advocacy. And if you see in the top left there, 83% of the services we provided were actually non-shelter-based services. So if you have somebody who's thinking about getting out or has questions about how to make the safe choice be the choice to leave, our agencies are ready to help. Our sexual violence agencies, there are a few more of those, and they also work across the state. There's 15 sexual assault agencies, and when we talk about sexual assault agencies, our primary focus is on adult sexual assault. There are another group of organizations called the Child Advocacy Centers that sort of work with minor victims of child physical and sexual abuse. Our partner here in Greenville is the Julie Valentine Center, which is both an adult sexual assault center as well as a child advocacy center. So you may know Julie Valentine Center maybe on the child abuse side, but they are also the agency that responds to adult sexual assault in South Carolina. But here are the statistics again from 2018 to 2019 with our sexual assault agencies. And I think in terms of thinking about what sexual assault is, obviously like the crime of rape is sort of like something that you can sort of get your head around. But our agencies also provide services to a wider range of sexual violence and sexual coercion that sort of would range from, if you sort of, from sort of like more extreme levels of sexual harassment in places like educational or employment settings, all the way to sort of things that rise to the level of criminal sexual conduct in South Carolina. So if somebody that you know is experiencing sexual coercion or sexual violence, our member agencies are there to respond. Julie Valentine Center in terms of sexual assault has, an incredible staff of counselors and supportive services. We provide services around the state, not only for direct and primary survivors, but also for their family members and supportive services, and looking at how we can do ER response, as well as sort of long-term care and management, and also providing support to adult survivors of child sexual abuse as well. So like somebody who's maybe disclosing for the first time years after abuse has occurred. So they do incredible work on the ground. I do think the more interesting thing to think about with sexual assault, I think a lot of people think sexual assault, we have in our mind that sexual assault is something that's done largely by strangers, that like we're assaulted by somebody that we don't know, especially as women, as we sort of move about the world, that's something that we think about all the time, so like being in a safe place. But actually the largest percentage of sexual assaults are committed by somebody that the individual already knows. It's perhaps in a trusted relationship or a friend or an acquaintance. So this kind of dynamic and the range of like what, intimate partner and interpersonal violence is often intertwined, and often the relationship. So like the percentage, I think it's on there is like 18%, only 18% of sexual assaults are committed by actual strangers. So that sort of changes like the sort of thinking about sexual assault. I think the thing for you guys to think about is like, I think we had a lot of questions about how has our work been impacted by the last year and how will it continue to be challenged. What was sort of interesting, I don't know if you guys remember in the news, at the beginning of the pandemic with like the full shutdown with children and families all being sort of, we're all, as you said, locked in our homes together. Our call volumes at both the sexual assault and domestic violence programs actually went down, like sort of pretty immediately. So, because I think, everybody, I think just like all the rest of us, you're sort of like adjusting to a new normal. Like there were so many other things to worry about at the beginning of the pandemic. Calling law enforcement or calling and trying to leave your home was overwhelming. So I think that initially, I think there was a lot of concern, like, well, what is happening inside people's homes and additional family stress? Anecdotally, I remember talking to a lot of law enforcement officers in the upstate and victim advocates at work at law enforcement. There was an increasing number of calls out to homes. Like there's just a lot of like family violence escalations and in law enforcement trying to de-escalate situations in the home. And then some of the calls that we were getting in initially were just of a more extreme nature. So I think that makes sense. Like I think if I was experiencing domestic violence and wanted to leave like in the middle of a pandemic, like staying in a shelter with a bunch of strangers didn't feel like a safe health choice. So providing safety. Our programs, though, were really incredible and very resilient, sort of had to pivot very, very quickly. So our sexual assault centers, they were not allowed to go into the ERs anymore for hospital accompaniment. So that was a major abrupt change for sexual assault survivors who might need that kind of on-the-ground support. Their counselors had to switch to telehealth models in under a week or two, which they actually did. And actually for some survivors, that's actually been wonderful to actually move to a telehealth model to be able to get access to therapeutic services and support that way. So I think there's going to be some upside there. But our sexual assault calls overall we're still like assessing our 2020 numbers, our 2019 and 2020 numbers. But we think overall sexual assault calls have been down. So hopefully that could be a good thing, that, people are not out and about and in situations where, sexual assault occurs. But I think we have a deeper concern for sort of teen and child survivors of child sexual assault. I think anecdotally is we've been worried that children trapped in homes have not been able to reach out to a trusted adult to tell them what's happened. So we are starting to see anecdotally an uptick in teens disclosing sexual abuse that's happened in the last year to year and a half. And that's sort of concerning. And then I think we're just adjusting to that new normal. Our shelters, especially like Safe Harbor, have had to close down completely at times. They've had to have a major reduced capacity, and then they've had to switch to a model where they're actually housing people in hotels and in the shelter. So I think we're still at a pretty low reduction in bed capacity, which has been a challenge across the state, and sort of looking at and trying to work with survivors in sort of a remote model, and then with a reduced bed space capacity. So I think that's been our biggest challenge there. So in terms of like sort of what is it that we do? So our member programs are on the ground every single day, but people ask me questions all the time, like, what in the world does Skadvasa do? Like, what is Skadvasa roles? In fact, our member programs are like, what do you all do too? So I think for me, and I'm the lawyer in the room, so that's for those of you, my friends who are also lawyers in the room, it's nice to see you. So one of the most exciting programs that we're able to do, the most that we do in direct service, we have been blessed with funding to provide legal assistance to victims. So in addition to me being added to Skadvasa and providing legal advice and legal support to all of our member organizations, we also have funding to hire contract attorneys to help do better referrals to victims to our legal services partners. I see Rusty here, so that's really exciting. But also to pay private attorneys a very low bono rate, like based on the legal services model, to provide direct legal representation to survivors of domestic and sexual violence and human trafficking, both in the civil legal arena and also in victims' rights enforcement if there's a criminal case going on. The other really exciting work that we get to do at the sort of macro level is that we get to get more involved in community justice projects, working with our partners across the state to look at sort of models that help widen pathways for underserved communities or communities that have greater challenges in or vulnerabilities and are facing domestic violence and sexual assault in a different way, and have more specialized barriers to accessing services, or have lower trust in more traditional criminal justice system avenues. So that's working there. We also work with the Department of Social Services to support a DSS liaison project. So those domestic violence victims whose families are also DSS involved, we're trying to sort of make the child welfare system more domestic violence informed, so that families can actually safely leave situations versus torn apart when they're trying to reduce the violence in their home and access to their children. The other thing that we do, of course, like it's really fun for me as a lawyer, is like my boss, Sarah, so we are actually the lobbying arm for all of our work. So we get to do a lot of work at the national and state level in the legislatures, working to promote system level change legislatively, which is exciting. But again, we work with a lot of the statewide and national agencies to look for sort of systemic solution. But I think on the bread and butter every single day, we get to answer lots of questions and provide lots of trainings. So our organization is asked to provide like higher level training across the state. So our member organizations are super busy, like on the ground, like doing the real work with direct survivors. So our job is to sort of bring in both, statewide and national speakers and bring together people for training. And then also we are sort of like the place where all of the strange and difficult questions get asked, both from inside our members organizations and without. So if you have questions, call us. That's our job. That's exciting. But I think for me, one of the, and as Kathy introduced, like, so when I got into this work because I was an immigration attorney at the White firm, and more immigrants were coming to South Carolina and sadly like facing these types of issues. So the intersectionality, so immigrants face a specific challenge in terms of knowing how to stay safe and accessing services, whether it's language or immigration status or just lack of knowledge, and then domestic sexual violence. Well, that same intersection that I came into the work in, through the intersection of immigrants or limited English proficient folks and victimization, we also work with lots of other different types of intersections in sexual violence. So it's really been exciting as we sort of move into a more diverse and inclusive society. It's our job at SCAD-VASTA to sort of build partnerships with specialized groups. So this year we have been most proud to work on. So the first sort of broad brush that we've been working on is the new South Carolina Restorative Justice Initiative that's been started by one of the law professors at the University of South Carolina School of Law, is to sort of bring and think about how we can use non-criminal justice-based solutions to bring sort of both safety and accountability to domestic and sexual violence providers that does not depend on criminal justice system outcomes. So I'm looking at John Malden here. That makes me excited to sort of work in collaboration more holistically with both sides of the system or outside the system completely. So I think that would be wonderful to work on. We've been also really excited. We've been working really hard this year with ABLE South Carolina. They've been an incredible partner to not only help all of our member organizations be more accessible to those individuals with disabilities and special needs, but also to make sure that when individuals with disabilities are involved, not only with our agencies, but with the system as a whole, are able to stay safe and get the support that they need. I think for those of you, especially close to Rotary, I think the other thing to look at is we think that we get to do a lot more prevention or broad-based prevention work instead of just intervention work. And we've been most excited this year. We have much younger staff members than me who have actually been really working on the sexual assault side to really push out prevention programming and work with this directed at teens. So for example, on the bottom right here, you'll see that they sort of launched a whole campaign through Among Us. And we launched all kinds of campaigns that are rolling out through Facebook. And well, none of you are that much younger, so you would never have seen any of those things because they're completely targeted into folks at college campuses and younger. And then we just recently had a statewide art campaign, involving teens in that. And then this website is really getting teens to talk about the idea of consent, the idea of healthy relationships, and how to make sure they're setting safe boundaries and have access to services. So that's been a really exciting campaign that I do not understand most of the time. So I had to be educated on what different emojis meant. I had no idea. So really, really proud of that work. And then as Kathy sort of mentioned, SCAD-VASTA at our level, we get to support a lot of community-based collaboration. So, we support the work of the Greenville County Domestic Violence Coordinating Council, which is run by the solicitor's office here. That's a local area, as well as the Julie Valentine Center has the sexual assault response team and things like the trafficking task forces. But we also get to collaborate on a more statewide level. So we support the South Carolina Immigrant Victim Coalition. I'm glad to see that still going, even though I've changed jobs. And then we've been doing an increasing amount of work with the Indigenous Women's Alliance to work on and bring more awareness on the specific issues of domestic and sexual violence within the Native American communities in South Carolina. And then the WIN Symposium, it's super pretty, but we've been doing a lot more work around the needs of survivors of color, specifically Black women, and then not only in the community, but also sort of within our member organizations and supporting the special needs that women and advocates of color have in this work, and those kinds of intersections. So I think in terms of giving you guys an ask, I was thinking about, well, what can Rotary do? What can Rotary do? So my high level Google research, this was really neat. So in terms of where you guys fit in, I was really struck. There was a project, the Rotary clubs in Australia and New Zealand have taken on domestic violence as a serious campaign that they are working on for system change. And the quote that was really struck out to me as a Rotary Club president in Victoria, in Australia, said this: "When ending polio seemed insurmountable, Rotary stepped in. Why can't Rotary help end domestic violence?" And then he went on to say, "And as an independent and apolitical organization, Rotary can do and say things that others can't." And I thought that was really incredible. And then the clubs, the clubs down there in Australia and New Zealand really went on, had a full campaign, and they were working in 3 areas: fundraising to support intervention services like their local domestic and sexual violence agencies. 2, designed an entire awareness campaign. So it's like hashtag No to Family Violence campaign that they rolled out across the region. And then I think more remarkably, I was in shock, actually took on the high task of prevention and actually designed an entire Safe Families program that they advocated for adoption on a collaborative basis in their various communities. So it was really neat to see Rotary take on that role and come into that space. So if any of you or this club itself is interested in thinking about how you would get involved individually with the work our member organizations are doing, or in the collaborative work that is, that goes on in Greenville County, happy to help connect you all.
We would like to offer a few minutes for questions, if that's okay. So if you have a question, if you would just stand up.
And it's also 1:20, it's okay. I can stay after if you have individual questions.
Patricia, this is Kathy.
Hey, Kathy.
I have a question. I often hear from people that they just don't understand, why doesn't she just leave? And they feel like she's just the victim, in this case, who's in a domestic violence situation, is just continuing to take it and isn't smart enough to just say enough is enough and leave. What do we need to understand about that situation?
Well, thanks, Kathy, for the question. I mean, I think it is the sort of natural and human question to ask, but it's probably the last question you would want to ask a survivor. But I'll try to do my best to talk about it. So number one, and sort of if you can't, you can walk away with one thing, is that the most dangerous time for a survivor of intimate partner violence is actually when they make the decision to leave. When they make the decision to say no and make the decision to leave is when things become more and more violent for them. So often, I always say, like, domestic violence survivors are always, always, always the experts in their own experience and the experts in their own ability to stay safe. They know that other person better than anyone in the world, and they're making a daily safety assessment for themselves and their children and their other family members. So often, the safe choice is actually the choice to stay. And that seems counterintuitive, but they know that. So I think, like, you always need, so we in our work always respect the survivor's assessment of what is going to keep them safest today. And that is, so our job is to work on the things that will help make leaving the safest choice. So how is it we as a community make leaving a safer choice more often than not and more ready than not? So they need the resources they need to leave and stay safe have to be ready when they're ready. And so I think we work on that. So I think that, so it's our job to reduce their vulnerabilities. That's our intersectional work. So we want to make sure that communities that have specific vulnerabilities and it's more difficult for them to reach out for help or access help, we have that in place and we let them know that we're there and that we're in a place of believing and that we don't blame and we stand ready to provide safe housing, financial support, access to employment, and access to just like critical safety and accountability when they need it. So thanks, Kathy. I hope that answered your question.
Patricia, we do have another question that has been asked anonymously. Does your organization have any resources for cyber stalking? And one of the dilemmas is, how do you prove that someone is cyber stalking you and poses a risk?
Yes, I think cyber stalking is probably like it's a growing problem. It's a real problem, and it's a difficult problem to tackle in South Carolina. We don't, just from a legal perspective, the laws in South Carolina they're not designed to sort of like enable law enforcement to sort of respond to cyber stalking in the same way. So I think there are efforts actually right now. There's a bill pending in the General Assembly to sort of increase the tools of law enforcement to create cyber stalking or respond to cyber stalking. But I also think law enforcement from other perspective has like investigative challenges when trying to track down and the technology pieces. And then I think from a survivor standpoint, making it stop is really hard. I mean, the ability to sort of like have your life online be cleaned. I mean, I think we were working with one survivor who was being stalked by somebody with like NSA clearance level skills, which is unusual. And even working with cybersecurity experts who have that level of skills, like when they were left with the only solution is that she would need to change her name and completely remove herself electronically from the world and to stop this guy. It's a very difficult crime to stop. And so hopefully, that's definitely an area of legislative advocacy. So thank you. That's definitely a hard one for us right now. Yeah, so the question was around sort of like, the intergenerational or generational aspects of domestic violence. Well, it's true. I mean, we do have a lot of clients who have been in generational cycles of domestic violence where it's something that happened within their, as they were growing up and they've experienced it. And that is true. And it's something that you have to sort of unlearn. You unlearn, and that's us, that's us to do a culture change. Where we weren't, in South Carolina 30 years ago, it was that was a family problem as an acceptable form of things. So changing the culture and saying that's not okay. Then changing that same culture within a family dynamic and learning about what it means to be in a healthy family or a healthy relationship and unlearning that. But it's also really important to know that domestic violence can happen to any one of us. It doesn't come from a particular type of family or a particular type of background. People experience domestic violence for the first time ever. It does not discriminate, and it doesn't only happen to people who are in cycles of generational violence, but it definitely exists, and it's something that's where it takes an entire culture change, which is why I think there's a lot of attention by both the Julie Valentine Center and Safe Harbor on doing really core level prevention work, even at the elementary and middle school and high school levels, to let people know that everyone deserves a safe relationship and everyone deserves a healthy household, and there are people here to help if you don't have those things. So I think that sort of working on breaking that cycle is important.
Patricia?
Yes.
We have a question from one of our virtual guests, Laura Ibera, if she can unmute herself.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thank you for having me here, and thank you, Patricia, for all your work. And I actually was wondering about how, in your experience, how long does it take for a person to close this circle or get away? Because for sure, I know this is very difficult topic to say. I actually have been through this whole process, but I just want to know how long does is the average of all the process from they start noticing this kind of violence, so they work with it and then go away or make a new reframing his or her ideas about violence. How long does it take for a person to be recovered of that specific situation? And for sure, I think it's all kind of differences, but in your experience, what is it the time?
Yeah, so obviously every situation is unique, but statistically, it's kind of shocking, but it takes people, the average number of times somebody tries to leave before they successfully leave a situation is actually 7 times. So that's the average. The average time it takes for somebody to make an attempt to leave that relationship is 7 times. So that's a very disconcerting topic. And I think that the goal would be for us to sort of reduce that. So again, our job as a community is to sort of how do we make leaving the safe choice? How do we do that? And how do we don't want somebody to have to try to leave 7 different times and facing the risk of physical harm or death to do that. So I think that has to depend on sort of are we there? Are we ready? So reducing the amount of time it takes somebody to exit that relationship and be in a healthier space for themselves and their family really depends on the community, having that community support and having the community believe them and not blame them. And I think that's where we need to go.
Okay, thank you.
So Tricia, thank you so much. We sure do appreciate you being with us and informing us. And I take it, people like me who take it away first, that Rotarians, there's always something we can do. And secondly, if we know or hear somebody, if we just Google South Carolina domestic violence and we'll see SCAD VASA, is that right? And then it says get help. And that's where we need to go. So just remember that if you are, find somebody who needs help to do that. And always, if you're a Rotarian and you want to help, please do so. So we have started a new project with Alexandra Elementary. Whenever we have a speaker, we'll be donating a book to the library with the speaker's name. And Tricia's already signed this for us. So this book will be going to the library at Alexandra Elementary. So we'll close out our meeting as we do all meetings. If you'll please stand. And we will recite the 4-way test. Of the things that we think, say, and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.